Yeah, the previous section, nobody's shown up for the last month or so, and it gets really, really boring. So I'm glad Anna, you, and Kelsey are both here. It makes it a lot easier for me to do the things that I'm supposed to do. And it makes it feel like I'm not the only person alive in the world. So there's that. Today, there are a couple things that I wanted to do. And one of the big things is we're going to talk about the online final. And I would like to look at Kelsey's sculpture as well as uh, talk about other stuff that's been turned in, and whatever you guys would like to talk about in that aspect. And we might be able to, let's see, we might be able to look up some videos or watch some videos that people have turned in for their things. And I don't know for sure. Hopefully we can. But then answer whatever remaining questions you guys have and stuff like that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go over the final. I know that today is a reading day, so I'm particularly happy you guys are here. I have been grading steadily for the last 3 days. I have not got everything caught up. I am trying to get that done by tomorrow. Everything should be caught up. And a big thing that's very important is everybody look at your stuff, look at where we're at, look at my comments and things like that, and then submit and resubmit. And I wanted to share something with you guys really quick here. Okay, this is the official university schedule. You'll see on this that final exams are the 23rd to the 29th. Now, and you'll also notice May 4th is the final day for us, for the faculty, for us to submit grades. What this means for everybody in the class is Canvas is open for you guys to do your final submissions up through the 29th, which is next Wednesday at midnight. So feel free to take advantage of that. Turn stuff in. When you do, email me and let me know that you've turned things in or resubmit, whatever. If you need more time past that, you can have until Sunday, May 3rd, and email stuff for me if Canvas is not working. And but after that, I won't be able to take anything else in ordinarily. Now, if something happens, if you need more time than that, let me know as soon as you possibly can. I will do everything I can to help. But we're talking about final submissions, we're talking about resubmissions. People have turned stuff in. I've commented on stuff. They haven't responded to the comments, or there are a couple people that are going through all of their quizzes and retaking their quizzes to get all those points, and that's awesome. So, and I am gonna I'm not gonna show you what the grade book looks like, but I am gonna talk about the things that people need to turn in. Let's see, I'm gonna go really quick here. Okay, artist research or service learning essay. We still need 4 of those. Most people have turned those in. I haven't graded everything. I am going through that. I have been grading today, getting all those taken care of. Let's see, and of course the work log for that. Not everybody who does an assignment gets the work log turned in, and the work log is just another 5 points, but it's another 5 points. And let's see, for SRIs, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people have turned those in. Again, the SRI, you should have gotten a link in that in your email this last week. And if you can't find it, just do a search for SRI. And UVU has sent you has emailed you the link for that. And when you take that, in order to get the points, you just take a screenshot and submit the uh, the screenshot of that. And I'll show you what that assignment looks like too. We go to our main page, scroll all the way. So here's the main page. You scroll all the way down to the bottom. Right in here, this is the final module. And this student SRI, that is the email that you get. It's a rating thing that you do, and it helps the department know what to tell me to change. And it will give you an overall 2% increase in your final grade score, which a lot of the times is a half letter grade. Now, the screen, and you will submit a screenshot of the receipt page after completing the SRI for this particular course. I know that this works because 5 people have done it and submitted it so far. So that is one of the important things as well. Let's see, and I am okay. So that's one thing. The critiques, you guys haven't been doing too bad on these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About half of them have been turned in. When you guys do this, well, you will need to do it very soon. I'm going to I'll hold it open until the 29th or whatever, so you guys have a few days to do that in if you haven't done it already. But those are really important to do. So about half of everybody's done that. But for the most part, it's looking like a lot of people have been turning stuff in. And you will notice too that I um, what is the tools of artistic critique? Oh yeah, we have that quiz. Okay, I've got to remember that. All right. Um, I'm going to go through and everything that is due, I'm putting a 0 on, and that again is to remind people so that they go back and redo and do that assignment and submit it. And after tomorrow, everything should be graded and up to date. So make sure that you turn everything in that's due. Make sure that you resubmit everything that you possibly can. Double check that I've graded stuff and email me if you don't see the grade so I can go back and double check that. That really helps. Um, Last week there was a little bit of a medical emergency and I wasn't able to get to everything that I needed to. And so that's why not everything has been graded, but I have been grading quite a bit. And like I said, tomorrow night, everything is going to be up to date. So, and Anna and Kelsey, have you guys resubmitted anything?
I have a few things, um, but I know there's more I need to do.
Okay.
I haven't
All right.
resubmitted anything recently.
Okay. So those you guys have a week to do that. And whatever you've got done that you haven't submitted yet, go ahead and do that too. And I'm talking to the class in general. All right, now I want to go over the final. This is really important, and it is not like any other final you've taken in any other class you've taken, unless you've taken a class from me. The online final, we are taking it online, but you have a whole week to do it. You have it from tomorrow until midnight on the last day of finals, which is the 29th. And we're going to go through this, but the final is something that everybody needs to take. Everybody needs to take it. It's a department mandate thing. I have to give you a final and you have to take the final. But in this class, it's not a test. What we are doing is 4 short reflections dealing with 4 aspects about the class, and this is going to be completely personal to you. The 4 questions are, what was the greatest challenge in this course? And if people are coming from digital art or 2D art, a lot of times the biggest challenge, it's going to be almost anything that you do in the class. But sometimes there's a project that is tougher than any of the other projects. As you write 75 words about that. What was the greatest success in this class? The greatest success, whatever you're the most happy about that you did in this class, or whichever you're most satisfied about, you write 75 words about that. And notice that each of these are numbers, so you can't write the same thing over again if it's the same thing. Number 3, what was the greatest surprise to you? And this can be a project, it can be an aspect, it can be something that we were doing, something that was a challenge that you were really happy that you succeeded on, and you're really surprised that it turned out better than you expected. All of that doesn't matter, but it's going to be the greatest surprise. 75 words. And the 4th one is, what one principle that you discovered in this class are you going to take with you for your future work, whatever that work is? Some of you are moving on to be full-time artists. Some of you are moving on to be educators or to be therapists. What one principle are you going to take from this course and even demonstrate, talk about how you're going to apply it? But those are the 4 questions for the final. And each of these you have to answer with at least 75 words. So it's going to be 300 words total or more. And you cannot count the question words for your word count. I have to say that because, believe it or not, people have copied this before onto a document and then counted these questions towards their answer word count, and that is not going to work. So you will need to number each of the 4 questions and have 75 words plus for each of the 4 questions. Now notice that I say a grand total of at least 300 words. That does not mean you do 85 words on one answer and 65 words on the next answer. Each one has to be at least 75 words. Now, when you take this final, I would recommend everybody has to take it. According to department mandate, and this is in your syllabus, and this is also with the department, if you do not turn this in, you can lose up to a full letter grade. Regardless of the point value of the final, you can lose up to full letter grade. And right there, results in loss of a full letter grade. Right there. That is according to department mandate. So everybody needs to take this, and it has to be done by 29th, by the 29th of April at midnight on the last day of finals. Now, you can take this starting tomorrow morning. You can take it, submit it tomorrow morning. If any of your answers are short or you don't get full points, you can see the grade, turn around and retake it and resubmit it up until the 29th of midnight. I've had people take this test 3 times during finals, and that's totally fine. But that's why I would recommend doing it right away and then seeing whatever I write down. If you don't get full points, then it gives you plenty of time to retake it.
So I don't actually see this in my Canvas. Is that normal? Like it's not there
It's
yet?
not on your Canvas because it's a final, and it's going to open tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So you can see that on this screen right here, it's not published yet. So I will publish it tonight, and it will be open, available from tomorrow until the 29th at midnight. All right, so you should see it on your Canvas later on tonight, tomorrow morning, and you should be able to open it up tomorrow morning. Or at 12:01 if you want to stay up late because you're so thrilled and excited to take the final. Right, do you guys understand how that works? So you're when you submit that, you're going to number 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to have 75 words at least after each of the 4 numbers.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
And you can't use the same answer multiple times. Again, I have to say that because people have tried in the past. That is so sad. All right. So, Kelsey and Anna, do you guys have any questions about the final?
No.
Okay. Again, I'm gonna publish it tonight, and actually, I'll publish it right now. And but it will be open to take um, starting at midnight. So you can't uh, do anything before then. So, but I just did publish it. And Kelsey, would you mind terribly refreshing your page and seeing if it does show up now?
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Yep, thanks. Yeah. I just get a little stressed about that because one of my classes they have the final in twice. And I'm worried it'll affect my grade if I don't complete both of them. So I'm just like Canvas is so weird. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Canvas can definitely be weird. I don't understand all the time what's going on with it. Um, and it can be kind of frustrating. So I'm sorry, I'm just checking something really quick here. In one of the classes I'm teaching, I have a couple people that I don't think they realize they haven't dropped the class.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
How does
that's
that
going to be a
affect
big
somebody?
that is going to be a big surprise for them.
Yeah. Oops.
And there I was really concerned as well earlier because nobody was I'd lost all the grades that I thought people had turned in, and then it dawned on me that I had published a class and I completely forgot about it. Oh well. I'm sorry, I'm just manipulating stuff so I don't forget.
So you mentioned a medical emergency. Are you okay?
Yeah, everybody's fine now, but it was a little bit disconcerting for a while. It was very odd. And it's just one of those things, where you get to the point where you're just super exhausted and you stop thinking, right? And so that's one of the reasons why uh, there were several things that were not graded because I was just not thinking correctly. And I thought it would be a bad idea to grade stuff in that state of mind. Oh, that is really interesting. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm looking for a particular assignment and I'm not seeing it because I was going to talk about it, but that is really weird. This is why the surprise look, the scowl on my face is there. That is really odd. Okay. Okay. All right. I can't find it, so I'm not going to worry about it until somebody complains. Well, I want to see if we can watch something because I want to watch the critiques that people have done, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time doing that. I'm just trying to find them so we can watch them. And again, I want to reiterate, any of the assignments, if you don't get a perfect score on it, look at my comments because you can always add, redo, or change whatever it is. Ow, okay. Okay, there we go. And I'm teeing up these videos so we can watch them. Ideally is what I'm hoping. I don't know if you guys can hear in the background. The dog is incredibly bored. She's bored out of her skull, and she holds us responsible. So she is crying right now, and it
I
makes it
can't
very
hear your
difficult.
dog at all.
Okay, good. But if you guys think I'm abusing the dog, I am. It's because she is highly intelligent, gets really bored very easily.
Hilarious. That's what do you do to entertain her?
Um, every once in a while we'll find a toy that she really enjoys fiddling with, but the problem is she's smart enough that after playing with the toy about a dozen times, she figures it out and it's no longer a challenge. And it's just really aggravating. She's an Airedale Terrier, and she really loves exercising her brain. And she's like a human 3-year old all the time. It's really aggravating. Makes it very interesting, but it is aggravating trying to keep her entertained.
I can imagine.
Okay. What I'm doing is double checking that we can watch all of these, and it looks like we can. What I don't understand is I one of the students I think is not understanding that the critique has to be done for our work in this class. I was very clear about that, but it looks like okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, it looks like one of the assignments that was critiqued is something that was not created in this class for this class. So that's odd. But so we're gonna look at that. Um, when something like that happens, I will give like half points sometimes, but it becomes problematic because you're not fulfilling the parameters of the assignment. I had one person got really upset because they had gone on a trip the year previous to Amsterdam, and he was critiquing stuff in the museum, walking through the museum and critiquing it. The problem was that was all stuff that was somebody else had done in Europe 100 years earlier, had nothing to do with this class, so he didn't get any credit for it. So too bad. Oh well. Okay. So I'm going to pull this up. What I want to do is we're going to watch these. There's 4 of them. And after we watch them, we're going to talk about each one. And after we talk about each one, all 4 of these, then we're going to look at Kelsey's sculpture and talk about that. So, right. Okay. All right, Anna, just another short half hour and then, okay, here we go. All right. Let me know if you guys can see this. Can you see this video?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm having a hard time. Oh, I see. I couldn't start it. All right, here we go.
It's Fifi Simon, and this is my artistic critique. This piece here is Karina Owens Lopez defining volumetric form with line. The work of Karina is an abstract freestanding sculpture constructed entirely from black wire. Descriptively, the piece represents a bouquet of 5 flowers emerging from a central vase. The artist chose to photograph it against a stark backdrop of draped white fabric, a choice I think is vital to the viewer's first impression. It establishes a high contrast environment that allows every thin part of the dark metal to stand out clearly against the pale surroundings. The sculpture's anatomy is divided into 2 distinct sections. The base, or vase, is a cylindrical form composed of a dense, chaotic nest of tangled wire. It appears as a 3-dimensional scribble, possessing a heavy structural messiness. Rising from this thicket are 4 distinct stems that transition into whimsical, looping flower shapes. Each flower head is defined by wide petals that culminate in a tight, precision-turned spiral. In analyzing the technical execution, Karina relied almost exclusively on element of line to suggest both volume and shape. Because wire is an inherently stiff material, these organic, curving forms suggest a labor-intensive process. The artist likely used pliers to apply the necessary physical force to bend the metal into tight spirals and fluid petals, creating that drawn effect in 3-dimensional space. The principles of design, specifically rhythm and repetition, are what is holding this piece together. By repeating the spiral motif in the center of every flower, Karina creates unified harmony. Furthermore, there is a brilliant use of balance and contrast. The dense, tangled texture of the base acts as a heavy anchor and grounding point, allowing the top of the sculpture to feel light and airy. The artist uses negative space as well, the empty air inside the wide petals, giving the flowers a sense of lift and delicacy, much like space suggests weightlessness in classical sculptures. My interpretation is that while this piece utilizes recognizable floral shapes, its abstraction invites deeper thought. There is an inherent tension in the medium. By using industrial wire to depict soft organisms, the work speaks to resilience and finding beauty in harsh realities. The contrast between vase and flowers is a metaphor for the human experience. The chaotic base represents the hectic nature of life and that very real part in our world, while the flowers represent growth and the triumph of the spirit. Evaluating the work, my perspective shifted during the critique. When I first looked at it, I viewed it as a simple project that was even very cute. However, after analyzing the technical choices, my appreciation has grown.
All right. Now, talking about this, I think they did a really good job. There is something I want to mention about this in particular that I think is important, but overall, I really like this critique. The point value for this, I mean, this is right under 3 minutes. Remember the time range is 3 to 5 minutes. It was very clear. But other than that, I think they did a really good job on this. I like how they went from description to analyze to interpretation to evaluation. I thought that was all very smooth. They didn't feel like they needed to outline each one and tell you exactly what they were talking about, and that is absolutely fine. The one thing I do want to mention is that during the description, they talked about these being flowers. And they talked about this being a vase. They also talked about this being a cylinder, which the cylinder is exactly right. But when we start using words where we're defining something in the words, that is something that we need to be conscious of applying when we're doing the interpretation. And the difference is when you're talking about, I want to make sure that you understand, Fifi did a great job on this. And this is something that you guys are probably not going to need to really pay attention to much unless you're in a setting where you have to give a critique for another artist. When you're describing, you don't talk about these as flowers. You talk about these as floral forms. When you get to the interpretation, that's when you talk about them as flowers. In description, you talk about the shape of this, which is a cylinder. You don't talk about this as a vase because vase implies that you believe that these are flowers. And that is both talking about it as flowers and vase, both need to be done when you have reached the interpretation phase. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely didn't catch that before, but I get it now.
Okay, and it's called keeping boundaries as you're going through the critique process. And all it means is being really aware of the words you're using and how you're applying your words. So what is really interesting is you're going to come across, well, it's interesting to me because I have absolutely no personal life and no social skills, but a normal person, maybe it's not so interesting. But what is, if you pay attention to this and you're really careful about it, internally, what's going to happen is you're going to sound incredibly brilliant. Where you start off describing, yeah, these are floral forms, these feel organic, these shapes imply some sort of relationship to the natural world. You use language like that, you're staying away from pouring your imagination into it. You're describing something that everybody else can see too. And as you apply more of yourself, when you go through analysis, like Fifi did a great job analyzing this, talking about the difficulty of working with the wire and turning it into organic forms. Was a challenge, or what would have been a challenge for the artist. I thought that was really great. And then when you get to interpretation, that's when you can start labeling objects for what they represent, maybe in the real world or the relationship that they have concretely to things in the real world. So you go from floral forms to organic shapes out of wire to these are flowers. And that's what the progression is that we're talking about. A cylinder form, a stabilizing element used to support the organic forms vase. That's the process that we're talking about. Okay, and in this we are going to be looking at this is self-critique. Okay, there we go. Okay. This one, notice that this was 4 minutes and 31 seconds. That is absolutely perfect. That's perfect time period.
My name is Fifi Simon, and this is my artistic critique for the self-critique assignment. This is defining volumetric form with line. My description: at its core, this work is an abstracted wire sculpture depicting a human figure, specifically a ballerina. The artist chose to document the piece in two distinct ways: through a photograph where it is held against what seems to be a dark black puffer coat, and through a video where the figure is suspended. The sculpture is constructed from thick, dark metal wire with joints visibly decorated by globs of a cloudy whitish adhesive, most likely hot glue. The figure's anatomy is highly stylized. It features a head made of overlapping loops, a densely bundled vertical torso, and arms positioned in graceful sweeping arc. The most prominent feature, however, is the tutu, which is formed by a large circular wire frame with a continuous, wavy, zigzagging wire dropping down to create visual volume. Supporting the entire form is a single straight wire acting as the leg, which ends in a tiny loop representing what seems to be a foot and point. In the video documentation, the sculpture is suspended by a vibrant, colorful string, allowing it to spin freely. This kinetic element transforms the static wire into a moving performer, as the colorful cord contrasts sharply with the dark industrial metal of the figure. Analyzing the technical choices reveals that the artist relied heavily on the element of line to create a distinct sense of volume and shape. Converting such a rigid industrial material into soft, curvilinear forms required intense physical manipulation. Principles of design are evident in the fantastic contrast between the dense vertical lines of the torso and the wide, rhythmic zigzag of the skirt. While the artist opted not to include literal hands or toes, the abstract references effectively guide the viewer's eye to complete the form. More so, the negative space captured within the wire 2-2 functions beautifully. It provides the piece with a sense of airy lightness and uplifting energy that counters the literal weight of the metal. When the piece spins in video format, the zigzag lines of the skirt create a flickering, rhythmic pattern that reinforce the illusion of a fabric garment in motion. My interpretation. The work is highly accessible to a wide array of viewers because the iconic gesture of a dancer is instantly recognizable. The artist has invited the audience to fill in the blanks of the anatomy, relying on our collective physical memory of a dancer's posture to complete the narrative. However, I think a compelling tension exists between the subject and materials. While ballerinas are associated with flawless, ethereal grace, this figure is built from harsh metal and messy, obvious glue joints and jewels. This creates that powerful conceptual statement about the hidden reality of ballet. While the performance appears effortless, behind the scenes, the reality is often gritty, painful, and raw, bent into place by strict form and practice. The spinning video serves as a callback to Alexander Calder and his famous Cirque Calder or Calder Circus. Much like Calder's kinetic wire figures, this ballerina bridges the gap between static sculpture and live performance, using movement to essentially give life into this industrial piece. Evaluating the success of this piece requires looking past initial impressions. While the visible adhesive and the casual backdrop of winter coat initially make the piece feel somewhat unfinished, I think a closer study revealed the strength of the raw aesthetic. The artist successfully captured the exact essence of a dancer's motion through the most minimal of tools. The work possesses immense intrinsic value because it communicates movement while forcing the viewer to see a traditionally delicate subject through a rugged structural lens. By adding the kinetic element of the colorful string, the artist elevated the project from a simple 3D study into an evocative, performative object. I believe it is a highly successful exploration of how line and motion can overcome the limitations of stiff industrial materials to tell a very human story.
All right, this I think is really interesting. I like how they chose, two different depictions. I think that that's really interesting. Um, this whenever you present your artwork, you should never have your hand shown. So I do have a problem with that. And you weren't supposed to use anything other than wire on this, so I have a problem with that just structurally because of the assignment. But I think that this was what this Fifi used to document the piece and turn it in. And I thought that was very interesting, especially when she tied it to Alexander Calder. What I thought Fifi did really good was taking herself out of the equation entirely. She's just talking about what this object is and what it represents. And that's one of the hardest things to do as an artist. Because when you critique your own work, you are never critiquing the work. As an artist, you are constantly looking for how you can improve what you've learned, what you can learn, how you would do it differently. And so when you look at your own work, it's almost impossible to critique it honestly because you are also responding to all the lessons that you learned. And that tells you what you would do differently. And because you are brutally honest with yourself, you don't give yourself credit for where you were at the point in time that you made the object. And you said you judge yourself not in comparison to what this object was that you created, but you judge yourself according to all the things that you could have done after you made the object and learned from making it. And so separating yourself from that when you do the critique is really it's a sign of a very intentional thinker. And I really appreciated how much effort Fifi went into describing all the different parts of it. How the head is different than the torso, different to the skirt, and I really liked them talking about that kinetic, the short little 20-second video. So I thought that was really well done. And again, it fits right exactly perfect into that time frame window, 3 minutes to 5 minutes. What did you guys think about that video that we just saw?
I think it did a really good job describing how the piece fit in with elements of design, and I really liked the interpretation or evaluation, I forget which one it was, where they talk about um, the piece seeming like a they said it so well about the wire representing how hard it is to
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah,
perform and it looks flowy and effortless.
yeah. And I believe that that was part of the interpretation
Okay.
when they were talking
Yeah.
about the actual material and the way the material is presented becomes something of a metaphor for what the object is representing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did a really good job on that. When I saw that sculpture, the first thing that came to my mind was Misty Copeland. Um, I've been a fan of hers for a long time. I think she is one of the most astounding athletes I've ever even heard of. But she really demonstrates that. Hard as steel, and then making every performance look like a feather floating on air. It just is astonishing to me. But yeah, excellent, very good. All right, now we are going to watch another one, and this is one that I'm kind of confused about. Um, I I don't know what assignment it fits, or whatever the object is. So I haven't heard it yet, so I'm hoping that they explain that a bit. Okay, notice before we start, this is right at 4 minutes, 10 seconds, which again is perfect time frame.
This piece is a Christmas tree, cocooned with newspapers that have been cut into leaves. At the bottom of the tree, the leaves are.
Okay, so that's where it fits. This is the cocoon object. Okay, that makes sense now. So I'm going to start over again. All right, here we go.
This piece is a Christmas tree, cocooned with newspapers that have been cut into leaves. At the bottom of the tree, the leaves are made of obituaries. The leaves throughout the center of the tree contain headlines and pictures of current events. At the top of the tree, more positive messages are found. Prominently placed at the top of the tree is the headline, Neuroscience Reveals What You Believe Can Change Your Body. And on the other side is a quote that says, Trees are some of the most resilient forms of life on Earth. The tree is mostly monochrome since it's made of newsprint with black text on it, but interspersed throughout the three-dimensional collage are colored photos. The shape of the piece is festive, but the mood of the tree is mostly bleak. The current events depicted aren't particularly cheerful. The leaves of the tree have been cut and placed into even rows, repeating in ever-narrowing circles until it comes to a point at the top. This imitates the natural repeating rows of branches on a pine tree. The choice of newspaper, filled with inflammatory information, communicates pretty clearly that this isn't meant to be a happy piece, even if there is hope placed at the top. The leaves are curved, so when viewed From most angles, the content of the newspaper that they've been clipped from is visible, showing this isn't as much about the physical form, but the sorrowfully hopeful message that the artist is communicating. The object beneath is completely covered, making it so you can't even tell for sure what is beneath. This demonstrates even further the idea that the messages we receive about our world are obscuring our perception of it. The tapering shape of the tree, with the positive stuff being at the top, makes it so that way the majority of the tree is filled with very bleak messages. This could be interpreted as a statement that there is a lot more negativity in the world that you could focus on than the positive. This, coupled with the top of the tree's headline, that belief can change your body, make a statement that while there is much more negativity to focus on in the world, that what you spend your time on is how you are living your life. I would go even further to say that it could be a metaphor for unplugging, because the messages that are continuously rocketed at us are typically negative, while the top of the tree reminds us, the viewer, of what is important, and the invisible tree within the cocoon is the bulk of the piece, regardless of what the exterior is portraying. The crooked top of the tree disturbs the balance of the rest of the tree, knocking it just a tad off kilter. This communicates the instability of societal narratives when compared to the object beneath. The choice of a Christmas tree as the shape of this object riffs on the idea of peace on earth, goodwill toward men, echoed throughout the holiday season by replacing the Christmas lights and bright colors with leaves the color of a winter sky, covered in messages of unrest. I think this piece is very successful. It shows the modern age's preoccupation with the negative, while arguing against fixating on all of this at the top. I think this argument is strengthened by the obituaries getting overshadowed by the news articles, making it hard to even see the names of those we've lost. I think this piece also articulates that you can make something worthwhile out of a cheap material that is considered disposable and was likely made out of recycled material. The shape of it is fun while also being deeply unsettling the closer you look at it, similar to a lot of our modern media and the messages it contains. It then resolves into a more positive message at the top of the tree and at the end of the social commentary.
I'm really glad that this one, I was confused about this one, but I'm really glad they addressed that right at the beginning, which is really nice. This I thought was kind of an interesting one because, we talked about the four tools of artistic critique, and standard is you do one tool, move on to the next, move on to the third, move on to the fourth. And what this individual did, instead of doing that, is they would describe it, they described the thing overall, then they would describe an area, and as they would describe the area, they would talk about that area, what was going on throughout the piece, and then they started describing how it was, that particular thing was made, and then they started describing what it meant. And they did that like three times with three different portions of it, which I thought was really interesting. And they talked about what the shape was, what the shape meant, how the shape was made, and what the shape was made with, then how that was interpreted. They talked about the overall shape represents a Christmas tree, and then talked about the things that it was made up of, and how all that kind of contributed to the meaning. So it kept looping through like that. And I thought that was a very interesting way of talking about it. And by doing that, I think it helps viewers see that there's a lot more depth going on than just a newspaper tree. So I thought that was a very interesting way of doing it. And I thought that overall this critique did a really pretty good job of addressing using the four tools, but using the four tools in a way that we haven't seen before with what other people have done. What did you guys think about that critique that was done?
I thought they did a very good job at hitting all the points. Was that project made by a student in our class?
Yeah, it sounds like it was for the cocooning project, cocooning assignment.
It was, it was really well done, and I'm really impressed.
Yeah, it's. I thought it was good enough. It should go in like in the student show, but the problem is it's conceptual enough that he would have to stand in front of it to explain it to people so that they could appreciate it. Because to be completely honest, even though I really like a lot of the people going to UVU, without somebody there with, signs explaining what's going on, they're not going to be catching on. You guys
Mm,
would see it, you get it immediately, but 99% of everybody else in the school, I mean, they would have to be directed towards, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Just because it's that deep. So yeah, I thought that was a really solid critique.
yeah, impressive.
And I love it when people use the tools that we have, but do something with it that's a little bit different. I think that's really cool to see. Okay, now, okay, this one is right at 3 minutes, 3 seconds. So that's again, perfect time. Needs to be within 3 to 5 minutes. And so this one's just right there. Excellent.
This is a non-objective carved biomorphic abstraction. It's a swirling line that forms a donut shape with protruding spines, culminating in one long curved spine. The inner part of the donut is sloped inward towards the hole, resembling the mouth of a sea creature like a sea urchin. From the rear side, you can see that all of the lines it slopes are pushing towards one dimension. This piece has a lot of visual weight, the front facing side resembling a hand reaching towards the viewer. There is a sense of writhing flow to this piece, reminiscent of a swimming jellyfish or a crackling flame. There is a large sense of movement communicated by the flowing lines that reach out from the circular core mass of the carving. There is a logical repetition to the spines, resembling the radial symmetry of a sea creature. The focal point is the center hole. Everything is flowing out from that point, and the weight of the large form encircling this focal point is balanced out by the large spine at the top, the natural conclusion of the flowing line that starts in the center left of the carving. The three-dimensional space around it is activated by the slight forward and backward tilt of the spines. The writhing, organized chaos of undersea forms moving through water makes this biomorphic abstraction feel surprisingly alive, like the photo was taken during the imagined creature's inhale. This carving echoes many different living forms while remaining non-objective. It never fully resembles anything specific. The protrusions could be arms or spines. To me, they mostly resemble tentacles. The center mass in the center hole could resemble a human ear, or a sea creature's gaping maw, the iris of a squid's eye, or countless other forms. When taken as a whole, as mentioned, this abstraction could be interpreted as a human hand reaching toward the viewer. It could also be the underside of an octopus, or even an ammonite. To me, this carving resembles any number of aquatic organisms, but it also could resemble a crackling fire, something completely alien to all the aforementioned sea creatures. That it could resemble both, to me, shows that this piece is an excellent abstraction of life and energy. I think this piece is wonderfully successful. It is very engaging and abstracted thoroughly enough that there are no specifically recognizable forms. By nature of being a biomorphic abstraction, it is also excellently representing the transfer of heat and energy, the basic physics that our biology is based on. Lastly, it's very fun, dynamic, and exciting to look at.
Okay, this is one of those things where you guys have not provided me with a bad example so far of the critiques. I think this is another excellent example. And this person did something similar to like they did in the previous one, where they start a line of description and then carry it on a little bit as they verge towards interpretation. But in this one, they stayed away from interpreting it until they talked about everything description wise, and how the shapes are formed and stuff like that. Notice that the difference was they mentioned things like resembling a hand, resembling an aquatic creature, resembling a flame of fire. When you start saying it is a hand or it is flame of fire, that's when it starts shifting over towards the interpretation. So I thought that that was really interesting. And again, I like this person's style as they critique it because they'll talk about like this shape and they'll talk about the many things that it starts resembling and then lean that towards interpretation. They'll talk about this shape, the many different things that it could that it resembles, and then start leaning towards interpretation. And after they did that in several different areas, then overall they started actually interpreting, what it could mean and what they were talking about. And I thought that was interesting because I think it demonstrates the person who was critiquing, I think it demonstrates a lot of their thought process. And I thought that, that was fascinating. So I like that. And I really like that towards the end, when they were going whole hog on the interpretation, they started describing how this could be a sea creature or a flame. And I thought that was really interesting. So Anna, what did you think about that?
I thought that was really interesting. Um, and he got it almost exactly right what I was going for. I made that sculpture um to resemble like fire and water. So there's like a water drop in the middle and flames coming out. You'll see it when you see the painted version that I was working on today.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, that was fun to see uh what I wanted to communicate with such an abstract work um was getting interpreted the way I wanted it to be.
That's cool. Do you feel vindicated on some level?
Sorry, I'm not totally sure what that means.
Validated. Do you feel validated?
Kinda, yeah.
That's very cool. Because I think even if he had gotten it completely wrong, he still did a good job on the critique. But it's
Yeah.
exciting that you're you were good enough at what you were doing. It just reached a chord with him, and he was able to see the same things that you were trying to bring out. So that's really neat. And that doesn't always happen because every human being is different. So that is really interesting to me that those two things would come together. Because I have had in previous classes, I have had like three different people critique one object, the person who made it, and then two other people. And what was fascinating is that I've had it where people have done that and they all agreed on it, just like what Anna's talking about. But I've also
Hmm.
had it where each individual had a completely different perspective on it, just completely different. Where one person thought it was really happy, another person thought it was incredibly depressing, and then the person who made it didn't have any emotional attachment whatsoever. you know, so things like that. So that is really that's very neat to see. So excellent. All right, so I am going to now. What I would like to do next is just reiterate that about 6 or 7 more people need to do those in the class. So do those. You've seen these were all really good. There was only one out of those that was just a little bit short. Um, all the rest were the time was perfect, but it's impressive to me that you guys have all really understood what's going on in a critique. And I love that. At the beginning, that tells me two things, I think. One is you guys are really paying attention when we talk about the tools of artistic critique, because and you guys have done this with the comments and things that are made during the discussions in the class. You've exhibited that you are aware of how to do this through the progress of the term. But I think the other thing that tells me is it really feels to me that there is a shift over the last 3 or 4 years. There's been a real shift in what you guys are expected to do, critiquing in your own classes at UVU. Um, I I've had really bad experiences with student critiques in the past, and I think I shared some of that with you. But one of the things when I do my own artwork, one of the things I really enjoy doing is trying to get into the head of a prospective audience. And I'm not creating artwork where I'm trying to interpret how they think. What I'm trying to do is create work where I imagine myself standing in their space. And so if I'm doing work that is, for example, pagan or Wicca, I'm not doing it as a Christian person evaluating pagan traditions. I'm trying to find what the context is and put myself in the mind space of the person who has a pagan worldview. And I'm just trying, sharing what I think that looks like, what that feels like. And one of the critiques that and this was like 25 years ago, so it demonstrates how much of a scarring it did. But I was showing this stuff, and yeah, it was about 20 years ago. I was showing this stuff, and the person started getting really upset because they knew that I was an LDS Christian, and they were angry that I wasn't doing LDS Christian stuff, whatever that means. And it upset me because in his mind, critique meant telling me everything I was doing wrong. And the reason that upset me was how could this guy know what my intent was unless he's in my brain? All he can do is interpret the things that he sees through his own worldview. He can't tell what I'm thinking. And that was when my perspective about what critique should be shifted, particularly. So, we're not judging as to whether or not somebody is being successful in what they're trying to do. All we can do if when we get to that point about whether or not this piece is successful, all we can do is render a judgment based on the things that we are seeing, acknowledging our own worldview. And that's where it's coming about. So we're not telling the artist, well, you could do this better, you could do that better, because that's not our job. What we are doing is, from my standpoint, I can see that this is successful because it makes me feel something, and I feel like I'm communicating with the avatar that I've developed of whoever made this. Or we can say, well, I'm feeling kind of frustrated because I don't understand enough about this to see that it's finished. It looks to me like the artist started in this direction, and these elements tell me that they weren't consistent with that direction. And so I'm frustrated because I don't see that it is a finished piece, or it's not. I don't feel that it's being honest about what it's trying to communicate. But that's just from my perspective, and it's a subtle distinction, but it is a pretty important distinction. Uh, so I don't know exactly why I rambled off on that rant, other than to say in the last 4 years, well, since COVID really, I have seen that in the art department at UVU, people are taking a very strongly conscious approach to critique is a way of looking at artwork where you're able to demonstrate your own worldview. And if you as an artist are successful, then you can make connections with how that person is describing your work. And if they are completely off and completely different, It's up to you as an artist to evaluate whether or not what they say about your work has merit, or accept or reject it, and then you can use it as a tool to improve your work. If you feel that it's failed and missed the mark. And so when Anna was talking, laughing and saying, "Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying," I think that's a mark of being successful as an artist. Whether or not the person gets the exact message you want them to get, I think matters less than whether or not you are happy with the fact that they've connected with it. If that's where you're at as an artist, even if they missed the mark, I think that that's still something of a win for you. Because when people evaluate our stuff, most of their evaluation is not coming from what your intent is, unless they spent 6 hours talking to you. Most of their evaluation is coming from an externalization of their own perspectives, and projecting that onto what they see of your doing. And what when you use like symbols and things and textures that are universal enough in their acceptance, then a lot of the time you can engineer a connection that falls in line with what you're hoping for. And sometimes the connection is going to be very different. So anyway, or not, maybe not, whatever.
Actually, really glad that you brought that up because I've noticed that in my time here with the professors that if I can gauge well enough what the professor likes, then I can be successful. But it's not so much, I feel like I'm in my assignments, I'm not making what I enjoy, I'm making what the professor enjoys. And I was wondering if you have advice in that as we continue. I have so many art classes I have to take, and I was wondering if I could get your advice on that approach. Because, like you said, with worldview, like people are going to interpret things differently based off their life experience. So
Yeah,
it's just really
yeah.
interesting to me.
Well, and I'm so happy you asked this, and I'm going to go on for a little bit of time at this. And Anna, this was not pre-planned at all. I'm just really glad that Kelsey asked this because I think this is a really important, valuable topic regarding art as a whole, but also going through the university experience specifically. Um, there is a phrase that you guys have heard, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And that is, for the most part, garbage. That is completely wrong. And a lot of people are going to say, well, no, art is dependent on whoever's looking at it and stuff like that. Well, yeah, the appreciation of art is dependent on who's looking at it. But beauty is one of those aspects like weight or mass or heat. They are things that may not be, beauty is not something that can be rigidly measured like you do with most scientific aspects of something, but it is something that is intrinsic to something, specific to something, and your reaction to it does not validate the beauty. Your reaction to it is an expression of your own worldview and how much you understand about what's going on. Uh, the reason I say that is if beauty was completely dependent on the viewer, there'd be absolutely no way to communicate using art, to be able to uh, even form any sort of a consensus about whether or not something's worthwhile to produce or if it has value to society. Because every individual looking at it, their judgment would have to necessarily impact how everybody else views it as well. And the first time beauty is in the eye of the beholder that showed up was in 1812 in a publication, tail end of the Industrial Revolution, when people are generating an environment where economically you can actually support artists and then support galleries, and then people can start becoming wealthy by selling art independently. And I think that perspective, that phrase came about more as a product of a developing market economy driving art as a commodity than any sort of philosophical observation. What I'm saying is, when you take Drunk Uncle Joe, I'm talking about the Chris Farley uh, Saturday Night Live thing, the drunk uncle with you to the gallery, and they don't get anything. It doesn't mean that when they enter in the room, all of a sudden all the art is dumb. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that they don't, they are not accessing the tools that allow them to make a judgment that reflects what the artist is doing, on any level. And that's important because if you read, and I'm just going to use like the Bible, for example. The Bible has been translated in more languages than almost any other book. But if you got a hold of a Dene copy of the Bible, you wouldn't be able to read it, most likely. I In all the times I've been teaching in the last 25 years, I only knew one student that could read Dene. And but the book still has value, even if you can't read it. It's not The meaning is not in the eye of the beholder. The meaning is intrinsic to that book. It just people can appreciate it more as they understand the language the book is written in. And that is kind of a loose analogy that I'm going for. So when you produce something with honesty and intent, other people are going to be able to read that honesty and intent, whether or not they can articulate exactly what's going on. And if somebody doesn't read that honesty and intent, it's not because it's not there. It's because they just haven't developed the language or expanded their worldview to encompass the language that would describe the honesty and intent. Do you see what I'm saying? And so when we're talking about a university and setting, and you're doing stuff to reflect what the teacher expects in a university setting, and people spend thousands of hours putting these programs together, which I did not really appreciate until I started teaching. People put thousands of hours to get into these programs that you go through, specifically because by the time you get out the far end of the program, they want you to have all the skills and all the facilities necessary to recognize the skills of others so that you are a truly competent and professional artist. That's the hope. And so when I ask you to do something, or when another teacher asks you to do something, they're not asking you to demonstrate your deepest, um, most purest soul for the world to have as a display. What they're asking you to do is kind of use their vocabulary to demonstrate that you're learning this principle, and that's it. It has nothing to do with your skill level as an artist, and that's why I'm saying it by itself. This may be an awesome object, but I can't grade it for its awesomeness, for its intrinsic beauty. I can only grade it in relationship to how well it fulfills the assignment. And my mom said this in a lot shorter way. She said, Andrew, you're paying for the education. The teacher's trying to shove that knowledge into your brain. Do what they want, suck down your pride, and deal with it. And that's what it comes down to. If you're taking a painting class and you're dealing with color theory, it does not matter what colors you like or don't like. You deal with the color theory. You follow the directions the teacher gives you, and you follow their guidelines until you get to the point where you get an A because the teacher is seeing that you are demonstrating your facility with the methods and the techniques that they are trying to teach you. And that's it. Yeah, and for that class, maybe all your paintings look like that teacher did them. So what? That's how painters have been learning since our ancestors 55,000 years ago started painting on rocks in caves. Somebody who knew how to do it, they mimicked that person until they understood what the principles were and they could go on their own and do their own thing with their own style. And that's what it comes down to.
It's not about creating, it's about learning the principle.
Yeah. Yeah. If you started, if you wanted to learn how to build furniture, you're not designing furniture at the beginning. And I had to learn this the hard way when I started working with glass. You're not designing the end product. You're learning how to use the planer. You're learning how to use the clamps. You're learning how to glue properly. You're learning how to cut the joints so that they fit and actually fit correctly. Doesn't matter how pretty it is. As you get better with those tools and you learn the techniques, then the prettiness will come. And then after you have gotten really comfortable with those techniques and the prettiness, then you can infuse your own vocabulary into it and make it look like that you did it. And it sucks. Artists don't do what they do because we're milk toasts and we go with the flow. We don't do that. That's why we're artists. We're different. We're made different. We're made weirdly. And so you just have to suck up your pride and deal with it and do what the teacher tells you so you can learn those techniques. And it's part of the suck factor of learning is what it comes down to. So did that kind of address your question?
It did. Yeah. I just want to say I have really appreciated this class and you as a professor. I feel like I've learned so much from you. I'm really excited to apply what I've learned here in my future art classes.
I really appreciate that. Because I've had teachers that knew what they were doing backwards and forwards in 16 ways from Sunday, but could not communicate that. And I've tried really hard to share the things with you that I think are important, so you come away having, if you don't know the principles, at least appreciating that the principles are there. But I'm really impressed with you guys picking up on this stuff, understanding it, and expressing it for the most part. And one thing that I really appreciate too is I've had classes where everybody's brand new, and I have classes where everybody's a professional artist. And the professional artists, the people that work for a living, understand what's going on. And your egos don't get bruised. You're hardworking. You do what you need to do because you recognize that at the end of the process, you're going to come out with better tools. And classes like that are always more rewarding to teach because I don't have to dance around egos all the time. And I really appreciate that. So thank you guys. So how much time do we got? Okay. We're going to look at, um, I don't know if we have time to look at everybody's stuff. I'd like to, but we are definitely going to look at Kelsey's and try not to damage her ego as we talk about it.
You're not going to damage my ego. When you critiqued it the first time, I was like, there's a disconnect here and I missed something. And so I had to go back and figure out what it was. I'm just trying to see if I figured it out yet.
All right, what I'm seeing on this is I can see the general form of your object. And what's fascinating to me is you've layered so much texture on it that the object itself is almost entirely gone. I think that's really interesting. And that's not ideally what I want. I want to be able to see some of the sculpture, but I think that what you've done is really impressive. I think this is really interesting. What's different between this and what you originally submitted?
I didn't I had to go back to previous assignments because I realized there's a disconnect. I misunderstood what I'm supposed to do, and it took me forever to figure out what it was. But I went back to previous assignments because I realized you were setting us up through previous assignments to this one. And it was the cube assignment with the textures that I finally had my aha moment of like, oh my gosh, I realized what I'm supposed to be doing. And I didn't have a lot of texture. I had a lot of hidden symbolism in it for myself. And I really liked my original one. That was for me. But that, like you said, it doesn't have to do with creating. It has to do with learning the principle. And so I realized with the cube assignment that what I was lacking was texture. And there wasn't enough of that, and I was too focused on the story behind it. And so I put on the left here, you can't really see it very well, but it's spray foam. And then to the right, it's paper. It's like packing paper that comes in an Amazon package. I sprayed it, I got it wet, I like crumpled it up on there, and then I spray painted it. I spray painted all of it. And then this top part, again, you can't really see it really well, but it's tulle and it's see-through. And which I think like this class, that's the one downside to it, is you can't really see it in person, but you can see the original form underneath the tulle in person, but in the picture it's hidden.
Yeah.
And then I painted over the tulle a little bit, added some gold. But I realized, and I hope this is correct me if I'm wrong, this project was focused on texture, and my original one was not.
Well,
Am I right?
I really like what you've done. And a couple of the things that I'm seeing is we talked about color, and you are using a consistent color palette throughout, which I think is really fascinating. And we talked about texture, and I love the fact that you have so many different textures, and you've recycled stuff. You know, you've used a lot of different kinds of things in it. And one of the what I think is so much fun about these textures in particular is you look right here with the paper, you have the paper underneath and you have the gold on top, and you have this really interesting thing going on. So there's a visual texture with the different colors. You have, you know, this gray with the gold. It's not a standard color um, scheme, but it's really interesting. It's something that you stick with in the whole thing. I really am liking that. So we have this kind of achromatic color element where you have the color of the tool, the gray paper, the black wire, and the white background. And then you also have the gold. And I think that's really interesting. And these sticks kind of, the sticks and the beads emphasize that kind of gold thing. But what I'm drawn to is the visual texture that's going on here, where the outside edge of the paper or the outside surface of the paper are painted gold, and the inside you see the gray next to it. And you see this kind of thing over here going on where it kind of mirrors this texture, but it's different, where it almost feels like folds of skin. And you see again an echoing of the gold on the outside, and you see a little bit of the material underneath. So the textures are similar, but they're not quite the same. And then this echoes that again with the folds of the tool, and you're doing something different with how little of the gold you're putting on this. I think if you spray painted the tool gold as well, I don't think it would. I don't know. I don't know what it would work, how it would work, but it would definitely be different. And it looks to me like it feels to me like the sticks, color wise, the whole thing is a lot more unified. And I don't know if you changed the color on this at all. I don't remember it as well, but I like how the sticks mimic that kind of gold that you have in the other places. And yeah, one of the things is I really wanted you to lay into the texture, and I think you did a great job on that. I think this turned out really well.
Thanks. Yeah, took me a minute to figure it out. I still, to be honest with you, haven't figured out the sorry, the yeah, the string work for wrapping.
The cocoon.
Yeah, because like I remember you mentioned that mine does, the way I lead the string doesn't look intentional, and I tried it again and I got the same feedback, and I'm just like, I just don't think it's connecting for me. I cannot seem to figure it out. But I emailed you another project I tried doing, but I had the help of a friend who has like 3 art degrees. But I still, to be honest with you, there's a disconnect there, and I haven't figured it out, the intentionality between laying down the wire or the string on it, and I was wondering if I could get your help with that.
Okay, did you get my email back where I sent you the picture of the sculpture that was wrapped?
I didn't see the picture attached, but I did look up. Is it pronounced Janine? Janine?
It Jean-Claude and Christo.
Yeah, I looked it up, and I'm on their webpage, and I looked at their. It's called Wrapped Women in Fashion Designs.
Yes, that's exactly it. Right.
And I looked through all of it, and it is like kind of similar to what I did, but not quite.
Because I think with the difference that I was talking about that, and we're going to just talk about this a little bit, where the person that was wrapped with the tool, you could see them really clearly, and it almost looked like a costume. The difference of what Jean-Claude and Crystal did is they did it to the point where it occluded the person. It was almost impossible with, you saw the overall form and you saw it was a human being there.
Right.
And that um, what I was trying to communicate is I think this could work out really good with some more tool wrapped around to the point where you could just see her hair and an arm and maybe her feet at the bottom, something like that, where it's almost entirely occluded. Because what happens with this kind of a thing is you do a little bit and it almost feels it feels unsatisfying. You do more and it starts looking like it's something that's important, and then you do a lot and it has weight to it, and it may be that she needs like just a blanket around her, and then you wrap the tool around that where the tool is the same color as the blanket, and that gives you an illusion that there's lots of tool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was really impressed with that because I thought it was going in a really good direction. But let me show this again. This is something that a lot of people don't recognize. When we look at something like this, this is the kind of intentionality that I'm talking about, where it there's a lot of lines there that are not necessary, but it also doesn't look like they're just wrapping it around. And what is important about this is if we go and look at some of these other ones, these are paintings that he did where he was trying to figure out how to fold the fabric and where to put the lines so that it looked on purpose and it felt on purpose. And it may be because I think with the chair, I really loved the legs, and then when it went to the back, it just felt like it was looping around. And I think that was one of the issues that I just had with it, where yeah, he didn't do it. There's others that he did are a better example of this, but like right through here, you can see instead of just looping it around in parallel loops, he has a couple loops right here that crisscross, has a couple loops right here that crisscross, and he's doing something very specific with the lines. And do you see what I'm saying? Kind of like this line falls up right here, and he ties it off right there with the horizontal line instead of continuing it all down. Right here, it comes up, it matches up to one line. So he has like one line on one side of the radiator coming up here, another line on the other side of the radiator coming up here, and they come together. There's this horizontal line right here, and then this vertical line right there. And he's just doing things that are not entirely practical. And that I think that's what I was kind of referencing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make more sense? And when we look at something like this, wrapping the Reichstag, you can see the folds are very intentional. And we have like this, there's this horizontal line right here that's right at the top of this ridge line with those elements, architectural elements, and right underneath the crenellation base, going around here. But it doesn't follow that exactly. It changes a little bit. And that's the kind of intentionality I'm talking about. Where you see here the horizontal wrapping, you see it doesn't quite, it's not entirely parallel. We have one line that's parallel here, one line that's in parallel there, and then we have another line that goes diagonal connecting them, where it doesn't feel like it's just somebody wrapping it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what I think is so amazing about these guys. He wouldn't just do this. Jean-Claude and Crystal didn't just do this. They came up with ideas, and then they would do these watercolor paintings where they would figure out, how do we want this fabric to start folding? Where do we need the creases to look? How is it going to look like with what colors of rope? And like, here's two different drawings of the car wrapping, where it's, VW Bug, and I don't know, so this is the VW Bug, and then he also did a Roadster, and you can see, these are both paintings before he wrapped that car, just kind of exploring where the rope would go. And you can see that, it's not always exactly the same as a painting. Sometimes it's very different, but there is an intentionality to it. Like, one of the things that I think is really subtle, the rope comes along here, and then it actually goes up towards the handle. When if it was just just simply wrapping it around the car, it wouldn't go up like that. It would follow the physics of the actual handle. And so, and you can kind of see this rope right here, where it's tied with this vertical strand, so that it's not entirely straight. It kind of loops around, and then it's tied right here again as it goes over the bumper, over the fender. And just things like that. It's a subtle type thing, but it's fascinating to me that this is the kind of thing that Jean-Claude and Christo really stressed about. And I think that is really fascinating. And the difference is, for me, and this shows a lot of those paintings that they did. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 different paintings that they did. 5, 6. And it's fascinating to me that they cared that much about how the fabric would fold. And what I'm not asking you to do a drawing like that. I'm not asking you to do that, but I am asking for intentionality with the cording that's used. So I just think that's really interesting to me. But what I like about that, when we use intentionality in the wrapping, is that we're demonstrating we're really thinking this through. Whether or not anybody agrees with this, that matters less than the fact that we are doing it with intent. And that's the story behind it. So, wrapping that chair, instead of looping it around like that, going up, then going back down, and looping up it towards the top, maybe going over one corner of the chair, coming across, and then doing it again. That's the kind of intentionality that demonstrates a little bit different than just looping it. Is that Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. It's good because we've gone over our time. You put a quarter in my nose and unleashed a torrent of verbal diarrhea that just won't stop.
Sorry.
So
I took notes. I appreciate it.
great. No, I really appreciate this. Um I know we're a little bit over on time, but I just want to wrap up really quick with a couple things. I want to make sure everybody, I'm going to be sending out every day during finals week. I'm going to be sending out a reminder to get the final thing done. I'm going to get everything graded by tomorrow night. If you see any zeros on any assignment, or they aren't where you want to be, email me. Especially if you have done things like resubmitted on the discussions. Several people have done that, emailed me, and I've gone back and I've tried to correct all that, so everything's up to date. And make sure that if you have any zeros or any untaken quizzes or anything like that, that you take care of them, and you have until the 29th at midnight, when Canvas will stop allowing you to enter things. Beyond that, if you need some more time, you have until Sunday that you can email assignments to me directly through the university system. Unfortunately, at that point, you're not going to be able to get any more discussion points. So do your discussions before the 29th, but you should be able to access most of the other assignments and stuff like that. So any last questions, Anna or Kelsey?
No.
Now, Kelsey, it would be really cool to see you fall through the idea of wrapping the child. That would be really fascinating. Very
That's
cool.
the plan. I don't know. We might not be able to rewrap my daughter. That's who was underneath it. But especially if I'm going to be covering her face with something that's not see-through.
Well,
But
I don't know. I don't know if you need to do that.
I was thinking of
You know,
redoing it with an adult.
okay, but like a blanket that is not centered, but like a cowl where you have the face showing, and it's not centered where one arm is hidden, the other one's out, and then covering that blanket with tulle.
Okay.
That would do it. That kind of a thing would do it.
I might.
You know,
Okay. I might be
where
able to
it's
repeat that
the
with.
legs aren't completely clear and you can still see, little part of the face or something.
Yeah,
That would be really cool.
I think so. I'll have to bribe her with McDonald's or something.
Yeah,
But
and
I plan on going back and doing that and then redoing a few other
okay.
projects.
I think that'll work out really well. The reason why I stress that a little bit expresses an idea, more is better, and too much starts having weight. Is a lot of the times we have these ideas and we give up because it doesn't work out right away. When if we kept working on it, then it would start getting somewhere. And if we do what we think is too much, sometimes that's what we need to do so that other people get the idea. So,
That makes
Anna,
sense.
okay, good. Anna, do you have any other last questions or observations?
No. I just wanted to say this class has been amazing. Thank you
Well,
so much.
thank you very much. That means a great deal. I'm glad you guys enjoy it. Yeah, um, I have had people get really upset and offended in the class before, and it's interesting because most of those people have also been people that don't ever show up for the teams meetings, that don't watch any of the replays, that don't actually read through the directions. So, and I'm really glad that you guys show up for one thing, but I'm grateful that so many people are watching the replays, and it's fascinating because the more people that watch the replays, the less people are getting it irritated. So that's awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate having all of you in the class. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I will definitely miss you guys too. Well, have a great weekend. I'm not going to see you guys next week, but you guys are going to do awesome on your finals. No stress whatsoever. Sail through it with flying colors. This final, do not miss this final because you'll lose the letter grade. I don't think I'll have a problem with anybody in the class. So you guys are doing great. All right. So get your stuff done and email me if I don't grade it right away.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Week.
See ya.